Hello, Debbie here, and today I'm using another of the new Colorado Craft Company and Anita Jeram sets for a watercoloured Father's Day card. I say Father's Day card, but this card would be great for any occasion when gifting to a man. Mail cards are so hard to make, but I think a limited colour palette really helps. I'll come back to that in a moment. But for now, here's a quick review of the 6 Anita Jeram illustrated sets released by Colorado Craft Company this week. I have a giveaway going on my blog along with these cute cards, and I'll leave a link in the description below to that blog post where you can find out all the details. I'll also leave a link to a post with more details of this card too, and of course I always list the supplies I use. I get a small commission if you purchase from those links, even though it doesn't cost you any more than normal, but by shopping through my links you help me to keep providing content to share. Okay, enough about that. Let's get on with making this card. When I was making the Bear and Bunny trio matching cards, I used transparent red oxide and phthalo blue green shade for much of the colouring. You can see how beautiful these colours mix when I looked at the leftover dried paint on my palette. I wanted to take this colour combination further with this card, only adding in a little perylene green for the trees. Here's a look at how these colours combine. I always love swatches and often think the bolder strokes I use on these scraps of card are more interesting than when I'm painting on my actual card. Point to note to be more bold and carefree moving forward. So I started with a concentrated mix of transparent red oxide on my brush and then rinsed my brush slightly before bringing that colour down a little. Next I mixed in a little phthalo blue green shade. This blue colour is so bright, and yet when knocked back by the orange of the transparent red oxide, you get the most wonderful range of greeny greys, neutral greys and muted blues. I threw in a little perylene green at the side as I wasn't sure the greeny greys mixed from the original duo would have enough green for my liking. I planned on making this a slimline card with the bear at the bottom and the watercolour spreading up towards the trees. I was totally inspired by a wallpaper mural I saw at Photo Wall. If you go online and Google watercoloured bear, you'll see the one I mean. So to start with, I planned up my envelope, card base and watercolour card front sizes. I measured the envelope I had from Simon Says Stamp and then created a card base from Neenah Desert Storm card, which was just slightly smaller. I then cut a panel of Archer's cold press watercolour card to go on top. With my measurements sorted, I stamped the bear from the Colorado Craft Company SNUGGLES set in Nocturne ink. I had to stamp it several times to get a clear impression on the textured card. I tried to remember to go in bold and strong with my colour application. On hindsight, I'd go in bolder and stronger because you have to remember that when watercolour dries, it pales and the colours soften. It can be a difficult thing to do, I find, to paint with a colour much deeper than you want, but it's something I need to work on. I added the hazy tree line at the top of the panel with perylene green, and also added a touch of the green in other places too in order to tie things together. The background blues had all been based on phthalo blue green shade with just a touch of transparent red oxide. However, for the bear, I pulled out the big guns with plenty of transparent red oxide, with just touches of the blue to create some lovely neutrals too. The way the paint granulates and settles in the surface of the card gives great fur texture, and I don't even mind that I got a couple of bleeds from the bear into the background in places. In fact, I actually quite like it and think it suits this loose style. You can see here that lovely mixing of colours on the arm where I went in with a rich orange, and then by adding the blue the colour is knocked back into a hazy blue-grey. I kept all the shadows on the back of the bear and the lightest touches of colour on his tummy. I did the same for the wee little bear too, but I kept away from the blue tones for his colouring. I added a deep dark ground, and this is where I see the joy of a swish of strong colour and the water doing its thing, and it's simply the best. With the first layer dry, I added a second layer hinting at the trees in the background and also deepened up a few shadows on the bears. I added a liberal splattering of white gouache, perfect pearls and diluted perylene green paint, and then left to dry while I moved on to the sentiment. I stamped the A Father's Love is Precious Indeed, Greeting, in clear embossing ink on black card that I treated with anti-static powder. I sprinkled with white embossing powder and heat set. I wiped away the anti-static powder with a dry cloth and then used a clear ruler, scalpel and cutting mat to trim out the sentiment. I split the greeting in two to add to the side of the watercolour panel. I used a T-square ruler to help me put the sentiment on straight. I added a few dots of Nuvo Sea Breeze droplets. These go on opaque but dry clear and add a subtle blue to the background. I finished off with a few sequins held in place with Gina K Connect glue. And so there you go, a watercolour card using a limited colour palette, which would be great for a Father's Day card. I'll leave all the links I mentioned below to this blog post, the one with the cute duo of cards, which includes the giveaway, and the supplies too. Thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have, then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.